The battlefield's price. The smell of burnt circuitry and plasma discharge hung in the air as Lyra Voss crawled through the wreckage of what had once been the Eastern Defense Perimeter. 3 hours earlier, it had been a state-of-the-art human military installation. Now it was a graveyard of technology and broken dreams. "Command, this is Engineer Voss," she whispered into her tactical comm. "I've reached Junction Point 7. Meridian forces have breached the primary shield generators, attempting emergency repair protocols." Static answered her call. The Meridians had been jamming communications since their surprise attack on the Nova Concordia colony. As humanity's newest and most promising settlement in the Orion Arm, it represented everything the isolationist Meridian Collective despised: cooperation, expansion, and human ingenuity reaching toward the stars. Lyra's dark hair was matted with sweat and grime against her olive skin as she pulled herself toward the exposed power core. At 34, she was one of the Coalition's most decorated combat engineers, with a reputation for making impossible repairs under fire. That reputation had earned her this posting on humanity's frontier, and now, this desperate mission to restore the colony's defenses before the Meridians could overrun the civilian sectors. The power core glowed an unhealthy amber rather than its normal blue. Lyra recognized the signs of imminent cascade failure. Working quickly, she pulled diagnostic tools from her utility belt and began bypassing damaged relays. "Just give me 10 minutes," she muttered to herself. 10 minutes and I can reroute the auxiliary power." A shadow fell across her work. Lyra spun around, her sidearm already drawn, but she was too late. The Meridian soldier stood silently in powered armor that reflected the core's amber light. Not human, but not entirely machine either. The perfect embodiment of the Meridian philosophy of guided evolution through selective cybernetic enhancement. "Engineer identified," the soldier said, voice distorted through external speakers. "Termination authorized." Lyra fired 3 quick shots, diving for cover behind a fallen support beam. The plasma bolts splashed harmlessly against the Meridian's shields. The soldier raised a weapon that looked more like a piece of living technology than manufactured hardware. "For the purity of progress," the soldier intoned, the Meridian battle mantra sending chills down Lyra's spine. She had one advantage: knowledge of the facility. As the Meridian fired, Lyra slammed her palm against an emergency panel. A maintenance shield snapped into place between them, buying precious seconds. She turned back to the power core, fingers flying across the controls. "Emergency Protocol Theta-9," she commanded, voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. The facility's AI recognized her authorization, damaged but still functional. "Warning, Protocol Theta-9 will cause localized system overload. Personnel evacuation recommended." "Override execute now." Behind her, the Meridian was already cutting through the maintenance shield. Lyra worked frantically, rerouting power conduits, creating a feedback loop that would temporarily supercharge the defense grid if she could complete the sequence in time. The shield gave way with a shower of sparks. Lyra turned, raising her arm instinctively as the Meridian fired. Pain exploded through her left hand and forearm, her world becoming nothing but white-hot agony. She felt herself falling, her right hand completing the emergency sequence more by muscle memory than conscious thought. The power core pulsed, shifting from amber to brilliant blue. Energy cascaded through the facility's systems. The sudden surge caught the Meridian soldier unprepared, overloading its shields. Alarm signals blared as the defense grid reactivated, targeting the intruder. Lyra's vision darkened around the edges as she watched the Meridian fall under a barrage of automated fire. Her last conscious thought was of her hand, or where her hand had been. Now there was only cauterized flesh ending mid-forearm, the plasma weapon having severed and instantly sealed the wound. When she awoke in the colony's medical center 3 days later, the battle was over. The Meridian attack had been repelled, thanks in part to her restoration of the defense grid. But the victory felt hollow as she stared at the bandaged stump where her left hand should have been. "We've stabilized the tissue," Dr. Octavia Reynolds explained, her lined face grave as she examined the injury. "The cauterization from the weapon actually prevented you from bleeding out." "Small mercies," Lyra said bitterly. "What about a replacement, standard military prosthetic?" Reynolds shook her head. "That's the problem. The Meridian weapon wasn't just a cutting tool. It carried a bioactive agent, something we haven't seen before. It's contaminated the neural pathways in your arm." Lyra felt cold dread settling in her stomach. Meaning standard Neuralink prosthetics won't work. Your nervous system rejects the connections. We've tried 3 different models already while you were unconscious." The room seemed to spin around her. As a combat engineer, Lyra's hands were everything. Her livelihood, her identity, her contribution to humanity's future. Without full functionality, her career was over. "There has to be something," she insisted. "Some experimental tech, some prototype." "The Coalition has the best medical technology in human space," Reynolds said gently. "If we had something that could help, we'd use it." That night, alone in her hospital room, Lyra stared at the ceiling as rain pattered against the colony's dome. Outside, repair teams worked around the clock to strengthen Nova Concordia's defenses against the next attack, work she should have been leading. A week later, she was discharged with a basic mechanical prosthetic, little more than an articulated claw with limited pressure sensitivity. Functional enough for everyday tasks, but useless for the delicate work of a combat engineer. The military had already processed her medical discharge, with honors and a generous pension that felt like cold comfort. Lyra sat in her small apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked crates. She'd only been on Nova Concordia for 3 months before the attack, barely long enough to make it feel like home. Now it felt like a prison, a reminder of everything she'd lost. The door chime interrupted her brooding. Lyra ignored it at first, but the visitor was persistent. Finally, she crossed the room and pressed the access panel with her remaining hand. The being that stood in her doorway was distinctly non-human. Tall and slender, with iridescent blue-green skin and 4 arms, it belonged to a species Lyra recognized as Vexari, one of the Coalition's more recent allies, known for their advanced biomedical sciences. "Engineer Lyra Voss?" the Vexari asked, voice melodic with the distinctive harmonic overtones of its species. "Former engineer," Lyra corrected bitterly. "Who's asking?" The Vexari's large, multifaceted eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. "I am Dr. Harkin Gyral, neurological integration specialist from the Vexari Science Academy. May I come in? I believe I have a proposition that might interest you greatly." Lyra hesitated, then stepped aside. She had nothing to lose by listening, and for the first time since waking in the hospital, she felt a flicker of something she'd thought lost forever: hope. The unexpected alliance. Dr. Harkin Gyral's laboratory was unlike anything Lyra had seen in human medical facilities. Nestled in a converted warehouse at the edge of Nova Concordia's research district, the space blended Vexari bioorganic technology with human engineering in ways that defied conventional understanding. Living tissue interfaces pulsed alongside holographic displays, creating a symphony of light and movement. "The problem with standard prosthetics," Gyral explained, using 3 of his 4 arms to manipulate a complex holographic model of Lyra's injury, "is that they approach the body as a machine to be repaired rather than an ecosystem to be restored." Lyra watched skeptically as the alien doctor's elongated fingers danced through the projection. The contamination from the Meridian weapon glowed an angry red throughout the neural pathways of her arm. "That's fascinating, Doctor, but how does this philosophical difference help me?" she asked, fatigue evident in her voice. She'd spent the past week listening to specialists explain why her condition was untreatable. Gyral's multifaceted eyes shimmered with what Lyra had come to recognize as excitement. Because Engineer Voss, Vexari medicine doesn't replace, it regenerates and adapts. He gestured to a containment unit where something organic pulsed in amniotic fluid. What human medicine sees as contamination, I see as opportunity. Approaching the tank, Lyra peered at the contents, a hand-shaped structure that wasn't quite mechanical but wasn't fully organic either. Translucent tissues revealed a complex network of neural conduits interwoven with what appeared to be microscopic circuitry. "What exactly am I looking at?" she asked, unable to hide her curiosity. "The future of interspecies medical technology," Gyro replied, pride evident in his harmonic voice. "A biosynthetic prosthetic that doesn't fight the contamination in your neural pathways. It adapts to it, incorporates it, and eventually transforms it." Lyra's scientific mind began cataloging the implications. "That's not possible. The contamination actively destroys neural connections." "In human neural architecture, yes," Gyral agreed. "But this incorporates Vexari neural mapping, which is fundamentally different. Our nervous systems evolved to adapt to toxic environments. We've engineered this prosthetic with those principles." For the first time since losing her hand, Lyra felt a spark of genuine hope. "Has this been tested, approved?" Gyral's posture shifted, his upper shoulders tensing slightly. "Not officially, no. My research exists in what your bureaucracy might call a regulatory gray area. The Coalition Science Directorate considers it too experimental, while the Military Medical Division argues it presents security concerns." "Security concerns. It's a prosthetic hand, not a weapon." The Vexari scientist made a trilling sound that Lyra interpreted as a rueful laugh. "Any technology that blends human and alien biology raises flags for certain conservative elements. They fear what they cannot control." Lyra understood immediately. Despite the Coalition's public embrace of interspecies cooperation, there remained deep institutional resistance to true integration. Humans were happy to trade with aliens, fight alongside them, even socialize with them, but becoming part of each other was a different matter entirely. "So why approach me?" she asked. "Why risk your position?" Gyral's 4 hands worked in perfect coordination as he adjusted something in the tank. "Because your injury presents a unique opportunity. The meridian contamination actually makes you the perfect candidate. Conventional treatments will continue to fail, but my approach could succeed where others cannot." He paused, fixing her with an intense gaze. "And because your service record suggests you're someone who values results over rules when necessary, someone willing to take calculated risks." The assessment was uncomfortably accurate. Throughout her career, Lyra had often found herself bending regulations to accomplish missions others deemed impossible. It was why she'd risen through the ranks despite her occasional clashes with authority. "What would this entail?" she asked cautiously. "A series of procedures over several weeks. The biosynthetic structure must bond with your nervous system gradually, learning your neural patterns while teaching your body to accept its presence." Gyral's voice took on a more serious tone. "I won't lie to you, it will be painful, and success is not guaranteed." Lyra looked down at the basic prosthetic claw attached to her arm. With it, she was an invalid in the eyes of the military, useful perhaps for administrative work, but never again for the engineering challenges that had defined her life. "And if it works, what happens then?" "Then you will have a hand that in many ways exceeds what you lost," Gyral said simply. "Greater strength, enhanced sensory capabilities, and potentially abilities we cannot yet predict. The integration of human and Vexari biology has never been attempted at this scale." The implications hung in the air between them. This wasn't just about restoring what she'd lost. It was about becoming something new, a bridge between species in the most literal sense. "There's something else you're not telling me," Lyra said, her instincts for detecting half-truths honed by years of military service. Gyral's lower arms stilled while his upper ones continued working. "Perceptive. Yes. If successful, this procedure would have implications far beyond your personal recovery. It could open doors to medical technologies that would benefit billions across multiple species." "And make you famous," Lyra added. "And vindicate years of research that has been dismissed and marginalized," he corrected. "Though yes, recognition would likely follow." Lyra circled the tank slowly, studying the pulsing protohand from different angles. It was beautiful in its alien complexity, both familiar and utterly foreign. "What about rejection? If human prosthetics don't work because of the contamination, why wouldn't my body reject this too?" "Because we're not fighting the contamination, we're incorporating it," Gyral explained, excitement causing the harmonic registers in his voice to increase. "The biosynthetic matrix is designed to form a symbiotic relationship with the Meridian bioagent, channeling its properties rather than opposing them." The concept was radical, running counter to everything human medicine had attempted with her injury. Fight became adapt, rejection became incorporation, enemy became ally. "When would we start?" Lyra asked, her decision already forming. "Immediately, if you're willing. The initial bonding process should begin while the neural trauma is still relatively fresh." Gyral hesitated. "There is, however, the matter of authorization. As I mentioned, this procedure falls outside approved protocols." Lyra smiled grimly. "I'm a civilian now, doctor. My medical decisions are my own." "Not entirely," the Vexari corrected. "Your treatment is still under military medical jurisdiction due to the classified nature of the Meridian weapon that caused your injury. We would need to operate discreetly." "You're talking about an underground medical procedure," Lyra stated flatly. "I prefer pioneering research conducted outside conventional parameters," Gyral replied, his multifaceted eyes glinting with what might have been humor. "But essentially, yes." The gravity of the decision weighed on Lyra. If discovered, she could face charges for accessing classified military technology without authorization. Gyral could lose his research privileges or worse, but the alternative was accepting her discharge and the half-life it represented. "I've rebuilt power cores while under enemy fire, Doctor," she said finally. "I'm not afraid of bending a few rules to rebuild myself." Gyral's expression shifted in the unique way of his species, a ripple of color across his facial ridges that indicated satisfaction. "Then let us begin, Engineer Voss. Together, we will create something unprecedented." As Lyra signed the unofficial consent forms Gyral provided, neither of them noticed the small surveillance drone hovering outside the laboratory window, a silent witness to the beginning of a partnership that would soon shake the foundations of the coalition and forever chain the relationship between humans and aliens throughout known space.